Last night, RT aired the presidential debate for third-party candidates, live out of Chicago. The debate was moderated by Larry King, sponsored by the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. And while neither Mitt Romney nor President Obama showed up, it was attended by former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party, the Green Party's Dr. Jill Stein, former Virginia Congressman Virgil Goode with the Constitution Party, and former Salt Lake City Mayor Rocky Anderson with the Justice Party. The candidates spoke about several topics, including something that we speak about quite a bit here at RT, the National Defense Authorization Act, signed into law by President Obama nearly a year ago.
I would have never signed the National Defense Authorization Act, allowing for you and I, as U.S. citizens, to be arrested and detained without being charged. That's the reason we fought wars in this country.
It's an outrage that 1021 NDAA was ever passed to start with. It's an incredible betrayal of our civil liberties that the president has assumed dictatorial rights to put us in prison at his pleasure without charge or without trial. This is unallowable and is a basic offense against the very foundation of American liberty, and it should be repealed.
I should mention this debate was aired on C-SPAN and Al Jazeera as well, but none of the major cable networks aired it, even though one of those networks, CNN, is where Larry King spent decades working. The four candidates agreed on more than they disagreed upon, but last night their ideas and their faces were thrust into the spotlight, something that doesn't happen often, despite being on the ballot in several states. They spoke also about another issue that has played a major role in our elections and in our democratic process as a whole: campaign finance. Here are a couple of the candidates speaking about that.
There are political action committees, not just of businesses, but of unions. I'm for no political action committee, individual contributions only, and no super PACs. And I believe Congress can craft legislation with presidential leadership to stop political action committees. Big money that funnels through the PACs is the greatest hindrance, in my opinion, to free and open elections and freedom and democracy in this country. We threw off the king in the time of the revolution because of heavy-handedness. We need to throw the PACs out now and vote for third parties that will stand up for America.
When it comes to political campaign contributions, that candidates should be required to wear NASCAR-like jackets with patches on the jackets commensurate. So what's really needed is 100% transparency.
So this was the first of two debates for third-party candidates. RT producer Adriana Ucero joins me now with more. And Adriana, you were here late into the night.
I was joined by, I was in good company, of course, our own Liz Wall and Abby Martin. So it was good. It was interesting. It was very good to watch.
But that's what I wanted to get your take. I mean, how do you think this went? Something I found very interesting. I watched it from home. And just being on Twitter, I mean, despite not being aired on any of the major networks, top 10 trends for the majority of the debate across the country. Hashtag third-party debate, hashtag now that's a debate.
There you go. Yep.
So people were paying attention. What did you make of it?
I mean, I feel, honestly, it's not that it surprised me. It sort of just reinforced what I already sort of had my suspicions about, which is people actually really do care about these things. People, I mean, if given a choice, if given an avenue in order to watch, they will. I mean, this is something that interests everybody and anybody who's, wants to be engaged in the process. And we're seeing that increasingly, even, younger people are. And that's the best example, Twitter right there. I mean, even throughout the entire electoral season, if you will, Twitter has actually played a major role in that. People actually watch things while they have their computers on their lap or, at their computers, whichever, in order to, sort of feel even more engaged. So that's a great example. I mean, it was pretty astonishing.
Yeah, it is really interesting. We saw, of course, during the Republican convention how in moments there was a Twitter handle called Invisible Obama after that Clint Eastwood speech. So I think it's a really good point that social media, Twitter in particularly, plays a role, and I think that it told a lot that. Another kind of telling thing was some of the issues covered at the debate. And one of the issues, we just played a couple of them, the National Defense Authorization Act, campaign finance, which it's shocking to me that this is not spoken about more by the two major candidates, Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. But this is something that they have a huge advantage of because of. So I guess it makes sense that they're not talking about. Another thing that a lot of people do care about is this war on drugs. What is it? Why are we devoting so much money, so much resources to it? So let me play a quick snippet of what was said last night about that.
We don't just need to legalize marijuana. We need to end drug prohibition just like we ended alcohol prohibition and treat drug use and abuse as a public health and education issue and get it entirely out of the criminal justice system.
Marijuana is a substance that is dangerous because it's illegal. It's not illegal on account of being dangerous, because it's not dangerous at all.
So, Adriana, let's talk about this topic. This is something, again, the other candidates don't really speak to. Why do you think this was an important question raised at last night's debate?
I think it was important just because it's a national security issue if you really think about it. All of these things have widespread implications. Right now we are seeing a lot of I don't want to say unrest, but there are a lot of problems south of our borders in Mexico. You see the DEA agents going into Honduras. All of these things. So drugs play drugs aren't only bad. That conversation has to be widened and there's a lot more nuance to it. And I think that a lot of people are ready to have that conversation. You could just see right there how, these candidates are all saying, listen, this isn't working, so let's come up with something different. You may or may not agree with that, right, but still it's something that has to be in the conversation in order to really move forward in that. And I think that's what you saw last night.
Although I have to say something I found a little bit troubling was of the very small amount of coverage that it got. Even NPR this morning, did a 30-second, 40-second little blurb about the debate last night. And really the only thing they referred to was the candidates saying legalize it. So, I think what happens, and I know that a lot of people try to do this with Ron Paul as well, making this his major issue. Ron Paul's major issue, of course, is keep the government out of it. But people kept trying to say that, well, I couldn't vote for him because he wants to make heroin legal and he wants to make marijuana legal. Talk a little bit about that, Adriana, how sometimes the legalize it drug issue is used to sort of make these candidates seem more on the fringe than they actually are.
Yeah, and that's absolutely the point. And I think the problem with this is that most of these candidates, when you see them, you think there's not a lot of viability to them. And you only hear, if you only have a couple of avenues in order to listen to their message, all you're going to hear is, legalize it. That's about it. But if you listen to different, platforms and different things, when you're talking about cutting spending, campaign finance reform, Jill Stein, you're talking about the Green New Deal, which is actually trying to push forward green technology in order to, move the economy forward. Those are things that are actually sort of mentioned already in, the mainstream debate, already in the mainstream media. Those are already things that are already being talked about. They are just not highlighted enough because, they're so widely politicized. So, at the end of the day, it's really, perception is the entire deal, right? So if you don't think they're viable, or if other people aren't thinking that they're viable, then that's why they're not getting, that sort of headway. But if, other outlets or other, like us, for example, give, these people a platform, you're able to say, hey, this is actually, for lack of a better term, a thing.
Real quick, Adriana, earlier today in our newsroom, there was an unofficial poll conducted. So I want to put up on the screen the results of that poll. This was just asking the question, who won last night's debate? Now, do we have the results for that? Okay, so who won the third-party debate? Well, in our office, it looks like Gary Johnson got the most, with Jill Stein and Rocky Anderson coming in after that. So, quite a few people actually, watched the debate and had something to say about it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. There's a lot to talk about there.
Again, an unofficial poll. RT producer Adriana Ucero up late into the night covering this debate. Thanks so much for coming back on the show today.
Thank you.